Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Cluiche with me, Seamus, Brady and Luke Peyton. And in this video we are going to run through the All-Ireland Hurling Quarter Finals of 2023. We had two hurling matches over the weekend, two of differing levels of competitiveness between the two sides. I feel like I said the exact same thing for the Tailteann Cup semi-finals. But Luke, we're going to start off with the more competitive All-Ireland Hurling Quarter Final, and we know which one was the least competitive, unfortunately. But speaking more of the competitive one, that was between Galway and Tipperary. Galway 120, Tipperary 118 from the TUS Gaelic grounds in Limerick. Now, once again, Galway were in a position where they were the underdogs going away to play a Munster team that had finished third, and for the second year in a row, they've taken them out and they're into the Final Four. What did you make of them?
Yeah, strange. I don't know, strange enough game. I think Tip very, very disappointing. Like very disappointing from Tip. Like I think they have gone flat ever since that Waterford performance. It was nearly that ever since the Limerick game. I don't know, were they out on their feet completely during it, like after it, or and just they never seem to hit the same heights after that game. And like I think in the preview as well, I just was listening to the preview anyway, Smaller Fish anyway, and Aidan Hart was saying that he was questioning Morris and Keogh and these players that have delivered so well during the entire year, and he didn't think that maybe when it came down to it on the big day, could they do it? And geez, that was some call, I think, on the thing as well as there now, because you looked at Morris. Morris was a certified all-star that you'd chalk him down as a definite all-star. Mark Keogh was scoring free from play as well. I know Seamus Callan seriously dropped as well, but you look at that as well. That was their starting full forward line there today. Tipperary, all three of them kept scoreless, and that's following as well. Previously, we all saw what Kilkenny's full forward line did to the Galway full back line in the Leinster final as well. That they absolutely filleted them. So I think for a Galway perspective, Henry will be happy how they've shored up back there as well. You look at the Galway team. A lot of people say the two cornerbacks maybe is the weak link in there as well, that he can't settle on starting cornerbacks there as well. But look, they did improve there. Conceding 118, that's a great tally to concede in modern hurling. If you concede 118, you're going to win. You're going to win pretty much every day of the week. So look, I think they'll be delighted with that as well. And like as well from Galway, the other thing that would be really encouraging to them, like I think amazingly, when you look back, I think it's only 2 weeks since Jackie Tyrrell made the comment before the start of that Leinster final that Conor Whelan wasn't a top four.
One trick pony.
Yeah, that he wasn't a top corner forward in the country. It actually, that comment, I can't believe he said that comment, because like that absolutely beggars belief, is that he's unplayable. He's absolutely unplayable. And yeah, that was based off a game earlier on against Kilkenny, when he still scored 2 points in that game, but he was taken off with a minute to go. And it was also based off a Dublin game where he didn't score. And that is entirely what's based off. Conor Whelan is the highest scoring player from play in the championship this year, and it's not even close. I think he has, after the last game, I think he has 714. It's approximately 714 he has from play, which is just absolutely staggering tally as well. And look, I just think it's absolutely unbelievable that comment was made. I think he was the difference between the two sides. Again, unplayable against like a good Tipperary defense as well.
And Cathal Barrett moved off him, like, Cathal Barrett moved off him. That says it all.
Yeah, you never see Barrett get roasted. And yeah, maybe Whelan has a bit more size, bit better in the air for Barrett as well. Maybe the matchup wasn't great for Barrett there too. But yeah, no, look, I thought he was absolutely excellent. And yeah, look, Henry made some big calls, I think, in the build up here as well. Like he dropped Conor Cooney. Which, look, I think a lot of people were calling for that, because Cooney's form just isn't at the level as what it's been in previous years. And the other biggie was he dropped Fintan Burke, and Joseph Cooney comes into the team. Sean Lennon was kind of playing a bit of that wing-back role with Cooney in around midfield, but there was a little bit of fluidity there too. And then the other call, Keenan Fahy, after not playing the last 3 games, came in, and I thought he had a good impact. He brings size, and he's able to win his own ball too, which I felt they did struggle a little bit against Kilkenny. So
he has a bit of nastiness as well, Fahy. He's a bit like he plays on the edge. Like I remember seeing him in a few Leinster finals. I think it was last year's Leinster final. He got into a couple of scuffles, but I think he brings a bit of a toughness to that midfield area.
Yeah, no, he does. He absolutely does. And you're not, like, he's not going to allow anyone to bully them anyway as well. And I think, look, after the last while, for whatever reason, they just weren't getting out of Conor Cooney. They just weren't getting that ball winning presence in there as well. So they needed to change it up. They brought Ronan Glennon back in as well to battle in midfield. He goes in, he just battles as well. That's what he's there for too. They get maybe 45 minutes out of him. And then Tom Monaghan came on with a huge impact with 3 points off the bench as well. So look, I think he showed some good tactical awareness there, Henry, that he fixed a lot of the wrongs from that Leinster final. They weren't getting carved open like they were against Kilkenny, because in that game, Kilkenny looked like they could have scored about 5 or 6 goals in that game. That wasn't the case here today. There last night. But like, yeah, I think he did show some good signs. He also fixed a bit of the Cathal Mannion positional issues as well, a little bit, that like he did manage to move. It did look to be Ronan Glennon and Joseph Cooney a lot of the time in midfield, which gave Mannion that freedom of being able to roam, but not the constraints of a midfielder. And he seemed to be an awful lot better, a lot more comfortable doing it in that way too. So yeah, no, look, I think it was good by Shefflin. I thought Shefflin did really, really well. And look, I think he won the battle between him and Cahill anyway in this one. And he answered a lot of his own critics, because I think a lot of people were starting to criticise him a little bit after the Leinster final. So it was a result that Shefflin definitely needed. And yeah, look, they've Limerick coming up as well. But like I tell you, if Galway lost that game to Kilkenny, to Tip there, and were knocked out of the championship, considering how they lost the Leinster final, I don't think Shefflin would have been coming back next year. So that's an absolutely huge result for him and for Galway.
Oh, it definitely is. And it's always the thing that, like, that's one of my big pet hates, like the results-based analysis. Like the fact that if Pádraig Mannion has his hurl in that moment there, instead of kicking the ball out and picks it up and drives it out, nobody's questioning Henry Shefflin after the Leinster final. But somehow Mannion kicking the ball straight to Killian Buckley is his fault. So, like, I think it's one of those things that, look, Shefflin has done a really good job with this Galway team. I still don't agree with having him as the Galway manager if I was a Galway fan, because I just think it's destiny that he manages Kilkenny at some point. I think it's absolutely going to happen, and to basically hand over your entire team information to the guy who's going to be managing against you in probably about 2 years, 3 years, like, I just personally think it's not the smartest idea. It would be like, someone from Tyrone going and managing Armagh, someone going, did you get what I mean? It's like he will know Galway inside out. Look, he is doing a good job with them. But yeah, like, what were you going to say there about that?
Yeah, no, look, I think in a way he might have, with the way this has worked out, is I think he might have ruled himself out of the Kilkenny job in future himself. I think that Derek Lyng couldn't, with the way this is going so far, I don't think he could have asked for a better year for Kilkenny. I think he's had the perfect start to his management career with Kilkenny, in that they got to a National League final. Yeah, they lost quite handsomely in that final as well, but in that National League, the amount of players they blooded in that as well, they won a Leinster title. And look, they played pretty well throughout. They're going to have a great crack now at a semi-final that they're coming up against Clare in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about Clare in a minute, but this is going to be a Clare team. They're going to be absolutely ravaged by injuries. They have a great chance of getting back to an All-Ireland final. I don't think this year could have went any better for Derek Lyng. So I don't see him going anywhere for the foreseeable. And that's my thing, is that, yeah, I would have agreed that Henry always had this thing that Henry's going to manage. He's always going to manage Kilkenny, but like, geez, something will have to go wrong to Derek Lyng, I think, for that to happen anyway as well in the near future. But yeah, no, look, just to go back to it, like, I think it's a big result for Galway, but just to touch on Tipperary, like, it is a very disappointing fall off too, based on what they showed. That promise, that draw against Limerick, after that, when you see them get a draw against Limerick, you're thinking maybe this is their moment where they've announced they're contenders for the All-Ireland in here as well. People are thinking, oh, they're going to sneak through the back door, and that rematch against Limerick in Croke Park, but they just didn't deliver. And like, I think they could have been way more points down at half time. They probably should have been as well. They fought back in the second half. The John McGrath goal did get them back into it towards the end and gave them a little bit of hope. And look, I suppose Galway maybe fell over the line a little bit more than kind of eased over the line. But look, I think Tip, low energy, not the same level of fluidity. Their full forward line didn't fire whatsoever as well. So yeah, look, I think they'll be very disappointed with how it ended. They did show promising signs in year one of Cahill, but it's the same kind of thing again, that start off with a lot of promise, show really, really well to begin, but do kind of burn out a little bit as the season goes on as well. And I think Cahill has a little bit of work to work out how he can turn that over. And like, it's very hard to know what to say on how they can fix it, because his teams do have kind of done this for a few years now. That's like the last couple of years now, that there has been this trend that they haven't been able to maintain it just as much. So it's a bit of a worry for Cahill.
Yeah, and definitely, like, he put it pretty simply in his post-match interview. He just said didn't turn up, and definitely needs to do a lot of soul searching over the winter and realize why that was. Why in the two biggest games of the season, Tipperary have not turned up. In the one where they could have guaranteed a place in the Munster final, they completely didn't turn up against Waterford. And then in this game against Galway, I thought they didn't turn up either. And it was a bit worrying for Galway that they had some stonewall chances. Luke, this is the last point we're making the game before we move on to the Clare Dublin one. They had Galway and look, they defended fantastically at the end of the game, which you could tell when Sean Lennon dragged down the Tipperary fella. You could tell that it was on their mind that they are not going to let what happened against Kilkenny happen again. Like Joseph Cooney fouled Tipperary as soon as they got the ball up the other end. They were not going to let it happen. And look, that's what you have to do. You're not going to win anything by being nice guys, in my opinion. And then down going the other end, they had a couple of chances to really finish the game off, and they didn't. Like, you think about the save that Rhys Shelley made. You think about, missing a couple of shots for points. Like, they really could have buried them. And I think that they were lucky that Tipperary weren't on their A game, because if they hadn't finished Tipperary off, maybe Tip would have caught them.
Yeah, no, look, I think absolutely, and it's a good point. Shelley did, for large parts of the game, Shelley did keep Tip in that game on his own. So, like, I do think, look, there's a bit about in this game as well. Were Galway impressive? I'm not fully sure. Like, going into Limerick, I still have big question marks over them as well. Very hard to know where they're at. Like, a lot of and then there is still that bit of uncertainty about them as well. I don't think you can go in with any great confidence and say that you'd expect them to get a result against Limerick now, because, like, look, Limerick are going into
the rest.
Yeah, look, Limerick are going in though in a vulnerable position though, where you're looking at Sean Finn is gone, Declan Hannon's going to be gone as well. That Keane Lynch potentially might be back. I'd be shocked if he starts though. So, like, they are as vulnerable as nearly as they can be, but are this Galway side the ones that could take them down? I think Limerick are probably quite relieved that it didn't, that the way the Leinster final went the way it did, because I think if it was Kilkenny coming through as well, I think Kilkenny could be in a good spot to take them down. But, like, I'm not convinced by Galway. It's very, very hard to get a read on Galway, but yeah, no, look, it'll be an interesting one going forward. I think Henry did show the good bit of tactical awareness now, but, like, it's a tricky one with Galway, and they're just that little bit streaky. Some of their players are streaky too, and that one day they can fire. Like, Brian Concannon didn't score, the next day he could score 1-5 as well. So that's the thing, is there is that little bit about them. Kevin Cooney was brilliant all year, didn't really perform to the same level yesterday as well. Then you've other things as well. Connor Cooney on his day can hit like, he can nearly get close to like 7 or 8 points if he wanted as well. But then on another day he won't even poke a ball. So it's very, very difficult to get a read in Galway. But look, we'll just have to wait and see with them.
Yeah, no, and definitely I'd be interested to see how they get on against Limerick. It is the exact same Final Four as last season, as in the other game, Clare beat Dublin by 5-26 to 2-17 at the TUS Gaelic grounds. And yeah, this was the first time ever on Cluiche that we did a live watch along for a hurling match. So the two previous ones were the Dublin Kerry football semi-final last year, and then the Galway Kerry All-Ireland football final. This time was hurling. And you know what? I thought, imagine the scenes if my first live watch along, Dublin managed to upset the odds and beat Clare, but my God, it didn't turn out that way. Dublin battled, when you consider about how bad the start was for Dublin, Donald Burke getting injured and Tony Kelly hitting the back of the net in the first 8 minutes. I was saying the fact that we were only 1 point behind about 20 minutes later, I was saying, you know what? I'm actually quite happy with the position that we're in, especially Dara Power hitting the back of the net, putting Dublin ahead, things like that. But then in the 5 minutes before halftime, just what happened? Like, Clare went from being 1 point ahead to being 10 points ahead in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, look, I think it's Yeah, no, look, like you said as well, Dublin would have been very heartened. I'd say if that on like 34 minutes, Dublin would have been absolutely thrilled where they were. And yeah, Clare I didn't think Clare performed really at all. Up to that point, that 5 minute spell at the end of the first half, I thought Clare played very poorly in the first half. I thought their shooting was very poor. Their shot selection was even worse than the Limerick game, which is staggering to say. But like then it just seemed to click for them a little bit, and yeah, I suppose they were absolutely rootless. I think Dublin will be disappointed with the lack of the central spine. It was just wasn't there at all. And David Fitzgerald seemed to nearly be unmarked, and he often kind of picked the ball up around, I suppose, straight in front of the post, about 40 yards out, 45 yards out, and just ran through as well. And then there was a few laid off to Tony Kelly. Tony Kelly's not going to miss them as well. So yeah, look, they have to be disappointed with that, and yeah, I think that kind of once those goals went in, if from there Clare got a bit of confidence and started hitting it, and they were picking off scores for fun. So yeah, now look, from Clare, once they got going, really impressive. But I thought they were very poor in the first half, very sluggish in the first half, and Dublin were right in that game. But like you said, like that, those goals as well, huge momentum came from that as well. And then Clare, when they got to that stage, absolutely dispatched them. But just to comment on it as well, big worries for them is the injuries, I think, as well. Is that, like, I think when you looked at one stage, we already knew about Conor Cleary. Then all of a sudden it emerged before the start of the game. Dave McInerney has a knock and he's out too. And then I think it's 24 minutes in, John Conlon goes off too. And then I think on the 39th minute, Shane O'Donnell limps off as well. Like, that is, if they're in any way serious, those injuries. I didn't even mention Aidan McCarthy as well. He's also not available, and the word coming out from that is that he'll be doing well to play again this year. So, like, if you take all that into consideration, it's starting to get, the squad's starting to get really, really tested. But yeah, like, I think they were impressive there as well, but they will be biting their fingernails over that.
I think it's simply put, I think if they're missing all four of those lads, I don't think they beat Kilkenny in the semi-final. Like, I'm not trying to sound harsh. Like, they do have outstanding players, but if they're missing Conor Cleary, John Conlon, Shane O'Donnell and Aidan McCarthy, I don't think that they get over Kilkenny, because looking at how Kilkenny beat them last year, how are you going to do it if you don't have Shane O'Donnell? And how are you going to do it if you don't have John Conlon, Conor Cleary? Like, if you're even weaker in your starting 15 than you were last year, and you could argue Kilkenny maybe are stronger. They've added in players like Billy Drennan and players like that. So it's hard to know. Genuinely is hard to know. But in terms of that, like, I was chatting with Aaron Prendergast. He came on the live stream, obviously the man behind Gaelic Games Fan TV. Big shout out to him. He came on the live stream at halftime. We were talking about, the first half, and we were saying we both agreed that I don't think it was necessarily a case of Clare all of a sudden switched up or Dublin dropped their level. I think Clare just started taking the chances that they were getting. Like, they were getting huge chances. Like, Sean Brennan made pretty much a double save, and Shane O'Donnell had a chance for a goal that he tapped over the bar. Like, I think it was just a case that Clare started taking the chances that they'd been getting all game. And then in the second half, look, Dublin did keep battling. They moved Owen O'Donnell out to midfield. Danny Sutcliffe was battling away the entire game. Look, that's the one thing that you can say, is that we did fight to the end. We didn't drop the heads, but I think the level difference was really apparent. Like, that the level between us and the top, I don't think has ever been shown more crystal clear than in that game.
Yeah, look, I did, but at the same time, I wouldn't be too critical though of Dublin too as well. I think that, like, the Donald Burke injury, like, Donald Burke is Dublin's best player by a mile, and
Yeah.
like he is their talisman of that team as well. He's absolutely essential. Him going off in 7 minutes is, like, it's a disaster really. It's a young team in there as well. You'd already talked with Dara Power in there. That's his first kind of year in there too. Paul Crummy, I thought, had actually really good performance in there as well. That's the best I've seen him play for Dublin too. Like you said as well, Danny Sutcliffe really good. Mark Rogan hits his first year in there as well. Paddy Doyle. I think Micheál will be pretty happy with how his first year went. Yeah, look, they got a bit of a humbling now there by Clare at the weekends now, and they're fairly dumped out unceremoniously out of the championship. But, like, there is stuff to work on there with Dublin, and I'd be somewhat happy, I suppose, with how the year went. I think they, coming out of Leinster, they were competitive all the way through Leinster. They got draws against Galway, and before that game of the weekend, they were in every single game all year. So yeah, look, it's a disappointing end to it there, but, like, I think overall it's been a positive year for Dublin with things to build on. like in there as well. They'll be disappointed with how open they were defensively, and that the fact that Kelly, the likes of Kelly, Fitzgerald, O'Donnell, Mark Rogers, how they could absolutely fill at them, carve them open as well, and there was goals there for the taking all over the place. That's a bit that probably will disappoint them.
Yeah, well, I'm personally, as a Dublin fan, I'm happy with how the year went. Like, I think we have made some good progress, and there's a lot of new faces in there. And hopefully next season, if we can get the likes of Chris Crummy back in the side, there could be some good progress to be made there. But yeah, that is the review of the 2 All-Ireland Hurling Quarter Finals, guys. There will be more content across the channel here on Cluiche from the weekend's action. So do make sure you check that out, as well as the 2 previous streams that we did covering the Gaelic football action. That's the video, guys, here on Play on Cluiche. And until the next one.